just want to ask you to give a really warm welcome to Charles Bookwalter.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Margaret. She didn't tell you. She asked me, what am I doing with my life? I said, I don't know, but I'm going to stay at home, and I prayed about it. I'm going to pour into my family, and I'm done with this. I'm done with it all. And what's that thing from that? Just when they got you out, they pull you back in. Right? That's what it was. So, thanks again, everyone. I've got a few words. I know it's close to 5 o'clock, if not 5 already. I will try to cut some of this out so that we can give away some roosters, which I'm looking forward to. I was out before dark collecting those roosters so that we could give them away. So thanks again for joining us at the first of what I hope is many Liberty Revivals. We've learned a lot about the state of Liberty in Indiana. And with the remaining time, I want to touch on some of those points of light. But first, I thought, because there's many of you that don't know me that well, and you've been invited here from a friend or a family, or a Liberty patriot, and I thought I'd give you a little background on myself and what brought us here today. So I am a lifelong Hoosier. I've grown up in Vermilion County, Indiana. I graduated from North Vermilion High School.
Ooh, yes.
That's right. Thank you so much, Smitty. That's right. You and I are on the old Falcons here, aren't we? Smitty may not know this, but at North Vermilion, I was on the first team All-State linebacker. Right. And so I went to St. Joseph's College in Rensselaer on a football scholarship, and then later transferred to Indiana University, graduating from IU in 2001. Upon graduation, I spent a year in Puerto Rico, fulfilling a goal I had of learning another language. Y yo puedo continuar en español si prefiero. No? Okay. All right. In 2004, I began my sales career with the help of my close friend and confidant, Ryan Kelsey. Thank you very much, Ryan. Got me started in that. But I was just not satisfied with that. It was not rewarding and fulfilling to me because I had something I needed to do. So in 2006, I enlisted in the U.S. Army to satisfy a lifelong desire to serve my country. Beverly and I were married in 2007, and we spent the next 5 years on active duty, serving in the Army Special Forces, also known as the Green Berets. Most of my time was spent deployed in a combat zone or training to be deployed to a combat zone. My rated time in Washington was 3 months. So I was out in DuPont, Washington for 3 years, but I was rated for 3 months of those 3 years, meaning I only spent 3 months in Washington. The rest of the time I was at training or being deployed. In 2012, we moved back to Indianapolis, and in 2014, we moved here to our forever home, with Beverly expecting our twin girls, Natalie and Josephine. And in 2016, they were followed by Super Sadie, our youngest. And I don't deserve the joy I have as a father of these girls to my incredible wife. And many of you may not notice this, but as someone who set up multiple defense bases in hostile territory as a Green Beret, I was looking for a specific thing here. I was looking for a place that sits on high ground, and it's easily defendable. A place that has running water. You haven't seen it there, but after this, by all means, you can walk down the trail. You can walk down to the creek. That's Goldsberry Creek right down there. A place where we could homestead. A place where we could raise our own food. A place where I could shoot and train. A place to homeschool our children. And a place to be prepared should we ever need to sequester as a family. I was content and doing what conservatives, particularly Christian conservatives, are often guilty of, which is to retire from the public square to the pleasures of family and private life, grateful for the blessings God has provided for us and our family. Like my father, and probably many of you, we just kind of live by the motto, we just want to be left alone. Right? Has anyone ever said that? We just want to be left alone. But that didn't work. In 2014, I began working for Intuitive Surgical, using the experience I had acquired as a senior Special Forces medical sergeant to train surgeons in the use of the Da Vinci surgical robot. It was a great career and allowed me to gain the financial footing to develop commercial property in Clinton County, in the town of Frankfort, along with my friend Tony Del Rio. It's when I first met Shan and was introduced to his love of community and seeing it prosper. Tony Del Rio and I had met as we interned together in Washington, D.C. I interned at the Pentagon in 1999, and Tony interned at the Department of Commerce. We lived together, and we remained friends ever since. Interestingly, the E-Ring is where I worked, and that's where the airplane went in 2001. Together, we built the building, Tony and I, in Frankfort, and then my brother Joseph and I, who's out there, we opened a Jimmy John's as the anchor store while I continued to work at Intuitive Surgical. Joseph went on to open the highly acclaimed Slabby's Food and Freedom, and you are enjoying some of this food. You did enjoy some of this food. Thank you, Joseph. But then, Anthony Fauci and company developed the COVID-19 virus, and everything changed. Or should I say, in light of the Durham report, the Russia hopes failed, and the globalists needed another way to take down the president.
Yep.
Amen.
At Jimmy John's, the state and the county were pressuring me to keep customers 6 feet apart, to limit how many people we could have in the restaurant at what times. They wanted my employees to be masked, they wanted my customers to be masked, and they wanted me to be masked. Even when not only was it clear that masks did not work to prevent the spread of the virus, but they knew there were studies out there that proved that. They even talked about it initially. I looked around, and no one that had any political power in Indiana was speaking up for us, for business owners, for individuals who just wanted to go to church, who just wanted to enjoy the liberty that is our birthright,
Amen.
who just wanted to be left alone. Moreover, I was in the operating room every day. Every day I was in the operating room across the state of Indiana and Illinois as a medical device rep. And what I was seeing with my own eyes was not comporting with the narrative that I was hearing from the mainstream media. It didn't make sense. In 2021, like many of you, I lost friends and family members who didn't understand why I was skeptical about the COVID-19 vaccination and why I didn't want it, and I did not want my healthy children to have it.
Amen.
And later that year, I lost my job and career as a medical device rep because Intuitive made it clear to all of us that a vaccine mandate is coming. All of us, we're going to have to get the COVID-19 vaccine, and there will be no exceptions because the hospitals require it, and that's how we do our job. We have to be in the hospitals. And if you don't have a vaccine and you can't get in the OR, then you can't work for Intuitive Surgical. So I resigned, leaving behind a lucrative career, one that I enjoyed, and one that I am never able to return to. I'd waited for Jim Baird to speak up for people like me, but he never did. So I voiced my concern to anybody that would listen.
Amen.
I stood up to Inspire Brands, the company that owns Jimmy John's, telling their senior leadership that what they were doing by trying to force masks or social distancing or cut hours of operation, that was their idea, to cut hours. I told them, you're starting something that you're going to lose control of. They supported bailouts, and I told them that it is going to have a catastrophic effect on our economy and our industry. And it did. But they didn't listen. You know what they did? They banned any of their reps from corporate to come to my store because I refused to mask my employees. They told me when we needed help, and I called them, they said, sorry, but we're not sending anyone there because you don't mask your employees. As you know, we've never recovered from that, as inflation is destroying wages, increasing the cost of living, and government assistance due to the lockdowns has disrupted the labor market. I stood up to the Clinton County Health Department and I didn't enforce masking, social distancing, or any of the silly and unscientific measures that were being handed down. I was removed, thank you. I was removed from the YMCA, from Menards, from several restaurants for not wearing a mask. I just wasn't going to comply, and I wasn't going to act like I believed in their unscientific data. I was not going to play that narrative with them. And many of you know what that felt like. That was a very difficult time. That was very difficult for me and my family as we walked into church, some of the only people holding hands unmasked as everyone else looked at us. As I walked into the restaurants unmasked with my family, holding their hands, chin up, it's okay, it's gonna be okay. That was not easy. It was very difficult to do. And I appreciate the people that are here. Some of here today stood with me through all that. My family stood with me. Caitlin and Tammy, who are sitting over there, that worked in Jimmy John's the entire time. They lived that with me. They knew the struggle. It was very difficult. They probably saw me more than once at a weak point in my life as I was working. We were working so hard because people weren't coming to work. The health department was mad at us. You guys remember all that. It was very, very difficult to go through. And when I was out complaining to anyone that would listen to me, what do you think that advice was given to me? I know you guys have heard this before. What did they say to me? Well, why don't, for the greater good is one. How many millions of people have been killed by that expression? For the greater good. No, it was, well, why don't you do something about it? Like run for office or something. So I did. But like Michelle told you, I was removed from the ballot over the state's 2 primary law, which I think they passed because they knew this liberty wave was coming.
Yeah.
But having punched a few bullies in the mouth over the years, I was not going to let them take my lunch money.
Amen.
Nobody's ever taken my lunch money. You didn't either in Florida. I had to fight back. Heretofore, we have spent over $30,000 fighting this fight for all Hoosiers to not have to wait 4 years to run for an elected office. And that includes PC. So if you were inspired by what Mary said and you want to get involved and you don't have 2 primaries, then you can't run for office. In a time where things change so quickly and there are matters that are so important to us, this is exactly why you need to be able to run at a moment's notice. And that's why I'm running for Congress again in 2024 to be your representative. And while I was deliberating and praying over this, many of you I spoke to about this, and I was asking you, like, how can I be effective in Indiana? It's a question I asked many of you in this audience. And here are the 2 questions I found myself answering many times. So I thought I'd just address them right here. Why primary Jim Baird? And why not start at a local office and move your way up? To answer the first question, why Jim Baird? And I don't have this written here, but I just want to take a moment to say that this is about politics. Jim Baird is a good man. I've heard great things about him. I'm not trying to disrespect him here. I'm speaking the facts about it, okay? And he deserves our respect as a service to Indiana and a service to our nation. But Jim Baird didn't speak up for Hoosiers who were losing their jobs for not getting a vaccine, or losing their businesses, and in some cases their homes, because of COVID restrictions imposed by the government. He never called out the CDC or the FDA or the NIH or the NIAID for spreading misinformation, for lying to us about masks, or for inflating the number of COVID deaths. He didn't speak up for children who were forced to wear masks in schools, even though the virus never posed any risk to children at all. He didn't speak up for the many doctors and researchers who were censored and lost their jobs and even their medical licenses for refusing to go along with the official narrative, or trying to treat patients with the best available, repurposed, and inexpensive medicines like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. And he didn't even speak up for the members of the military who faced dishonorable discharge for refusing to get an experimental vaccine, even though members of the military cannot be forced to get an experimental vaccine. It's illegal. It was an illegal order, and it should have been stopped. And someone in Congressman Baird's position could have helped stop it, but he didn't. In fact, Jim Baird, incredibly, was one of 4 Republican co-sponsors on a bill to create a vaccine database to track every American who gets a vaccine or does not get a vaccine. You may not know that that was a Democrat bill. Not one Democrat voted against that bill. The main sponsor was a Democrat. Another Republican, a Republican from Illinois, said this vaccine tracking system would be used to hound Americans who don't want to get a vaccine. But it's not just this bill, and it's not just this issue. Folks, how many of you are feeling good about the almost $200 billion that we've sent to Ukraine? Please don't raise your hand if you are. You might get booed. Or worse. Our own cities are crumbling. Our people, many of them, are struggling under the burden of debt and inflation. Our government is $33 trillion in debt, an extraordinary sum that could easily bankrupt us, driving most of the middle-class people into poverty. And yet, Jim Baird voted for $40 billion to be sent to Ukraine in 2022. Representative Jim Banks did not vote for that. He voted against it. But Jim Baird voted for it and has voted for every single Ukraine package since. And that aid isn't being used only for defense. It's being used to pay the salaries of the members of the corrupt Ukrainian government. It's being used to fund lavish lifestyles of government ministers. It's being laundered back into big corporations, and it's being used to provoke war, to provoke Russia into a nuclear war. We're now closer to nuclear war than any time in more than half a century. Closer than any time in my lifetime. And Americans don't want this. Do you want this?
No.
The people of the 4th District don't want this. The 4th District, where I'm running, is a very conservative district. We have a map available over here. We'll put it up on this easel over here. We didn't want to put it up there because we didn't want to spoil the surprise announcement. But it is a map we have available to you to see the entire geography. It's a great district, and one that I know well, having grown up in Vermilion County in western Indiana, very close to the border of the 4th District. I know the people of the 4th District, and I know they are not for big government, but big government Baird is. The Heritage Foundation's political arm, Heritage Action, gave Jim Baird the lowest ranking of any House member from Indiana. Heritage Action said Big Government Baird is the least conservative member of the U.S. House of Representatives from Indiana. He got a score of just 79%, compared to the average score of House Republicans at 89%. And that is in Indiana's, arguably, Indiana's most conservative district. Jim Baird was rated as much less conservative than the average Republican in the House. Just think about that. In their scoring, Heritage Action looked at several key votes on big bills. And they pointed out that Jim Baird voted for the CHIPS Act, a $250 billion corporate welfare bill that supporters claim would make us more competitive with China, but which Heritage said would in fact do the opposite and make us less competitive with China. Jim Baird also voted for the $1.5 trillion omnibus spending bill that funds President Biden's Green New Deal. And it also gave an additional $14 billion to Ukraine. Conservatives got nothing in the bill. It could have ended the COVID-19 emergency, but it didn't. It could have lifted the illegal vaccine mandates on our troops, but it didn't. And Jim Baird voted for it anyway. In 2021, Big Government Baird voted for the National Defense Authorization Act, which included red flag laws that would allow military courts to strip service members of their Second Amendment rights without due process and without the service member being present in court.
Boo.
In 2020, he voted for the biggest spending bill ever, the $2.2 trillion CARES Act, which created the Paycheck Protection Program, a total disaster of a program that allowed big, rich corporations to get millions from the government, money they didn't need, in what was called the biggest fraud in U.S. history. Through the quarters of time, we can hear these mistakes echoing back in our ears. We can see the tragic missteps, the incompetence, the decisions made based on an incorrect understanding of what's happening in our world. The mistakes are being made by people who haven't taken the time to understand what's really happening. That this is a spiritual battle. But I promised an answer to the second question, and that was, why don't you start as a county commissioner and then move up to serve as a state representative, and then after a few years, then you run for Congress? And my response to that is this: you mean like Jim Baird did? Jim Baird was a county commissioner, and then he ran as a state rep, and only after serving as state rep for a few terms, then he ran for Congress. We have to stop electing people in the same way and expecting a different outcome. Indiana has consistently been electing people who have worked their way up from school board or county commissioner to the General Assembly, and then after 15 or 20 years or so in politics, they run for Congress. But by the time they get there, they don't have fire in the belly anymore. By the time they get there, they become part of the system.
Yes.
By that time, the lobbyists have their fangs in too deep. Mm-hmm. So these aren't usually the people who are going to go fight for you. And it is time for fighters. This country needs people willing to fight. This isn't 1980, this isn't 1990. We can't just vote for the nice guy.
We're fighting in here now.
That's right. We need fighters. Somebody's listening. We can't approach this the same way anymore. We can't just vote for someone with a political record, with a pretty smile, or whatever it is we look for. It's different now. They changed this. We need change, and things have to change dramatically. I am so glad that they are speaking up. Those are my girls.
Chickens flying.
We don't need a professional politician in this job anymore. That's the last thing we need. That is the last thing we need is another professional politician. You need a fighter. We need a fighter. We need someone who will charge the hill, who will shout from the mountaintop, and who will never give up and never give in. A long time ago, I decided that I would not live for me, but for something bigger. And I would fight not for me, but for all of us, for our country. Theodore Roosevelt said, "No man is worth his salt who is not ready at all times to risk his well-being, to risk his body, and to risk his life in a great cause." So what is the great cause of our time? It is pulling our state and our nation back from the brink. A lot of us struggle to understand, like, how could this be happening? And why is no one stopping this? How is it possible that so many Americans could believe that government could forcibly shut down churches due to a virus? How is it possible so many Americans could believe that the government has a right to force something into your bloodstream?
Yes.
How is it possible that so many young Americans no longer believe in the biological reality of male and female?
Unacceptable.
How is it that government can tell you what type of vehicle you're allowed to drive, or what energy source you must use, or how you have to run your business? The long train of abuses goes on and on and on. How have so many Americans turned away from God in just 1 or 2 generations? What has happened to our FBI, where the top leadership is so thoroughly corrupt, so rotten, that they have no qualms about using the power of the agency and millions of taxpayer dollars to pursue an investigation of the president that they knew from the very beginning had no basis? So what is to be done? I've asked this question over and over again, and the answer keeps coming back to me, and it keeps echoing inside of me. And the answer is this: we have to take political power.
Woo!
We have to take it away from the people who are not willing to fight for liberty. We have to take it away from the people who sat on their hands and remained silent while nurses and soldiers and my own family members lost everything because they didn't want to get an experimental vaccine, or the CDC determined their business was not essential. We have to take power away from those who keep voting to give more and more money to an administrative state that is now so large and so powerful that, if not already, we are at risk of becoming slaves to it.
Yeah.
We have to take power away from those who want to keep our nation in a state of perpetual war. And not because we are threatened, but because they profit from it.
Yep. Yep.
Thomas Paine said, "Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. In stepping out and doing this, I know I cannot do it alone. I need your help. I need your help to walk with me in parades, to help spread the word about our campaign on social media, to let me know what issues are important to you and your family, to donate your time, talent, and treasure. We're gonna raise $500,000 between now and next April, when early voting starts. It won't be easy, as we are not gonna have the party behind us, at least at first. We're not gonna have lobbyists, but we can do this. And we can do this, and you know how I know why we can do this? Because we are winning. We are winning. In Boone County alone, our group in Libertas, founded by Rod Noggle, has helped get patriots like Tim Byer elected county commissioner. Against what everyone thought was an unbeatable incumbent. In the recent municipal elections, six of our candidates won their primary.
Woo!
I'm going to initially fund the campaign with a loan of $35,000. Don't laugh, because that's not much in today's political landscape.
It's not.
That's right. That's right. But with that $35,000 in seed money, we're aiming to raise $100,000 by the end of July, and we can do this. If you can help, and it's past 4:30 p.m., 16:30 for Jason, you can go to bookwilderforcongress.com and check out our website, and you can donate there. But there are a lot of other ways you can help too. Could you be a county coordinator for our campaign? Or do you know someone that can? We're going to need a county coordinator in every county to be our eyes and ears to help with events. We also need people who can make phone calls and go door to door with us. And this isn't just me doing this. This is all of us doing this together. By uniting together as Liberty candidates under the umbrella of this campaign, we will pursue a twofold attack, putting forth a PC or a local candidate for every possible position in local office, and simultaneously run for the highest elected office in the 4th District, the U.S. House. This approach allows us to pick up seats and influence the party no matter what. We're gonna get some wins out of this. Imagine, just imagine how significant that would be to the establishment in Washington, D.C. if Indiana sent a patriot to join those few but growing numbers there right now. That would be And I want to tell you this, I will not disappoint you. Green Berets are force multipliers. It's one of the original missions of the Special Forces. My mission is to continue building this grassroots campaign by recruiting, training, and fighting alongside the others who will engage in this fight by running for precinct committeeman, or city council, or commissioner, or delegate, or dog catcher, if you want to. We have a strategy to build a network of patriots that will walk in parades together, that will attend events together, that will attend campaign training events together, that will worship together, and stand for liberty together. It is the spirit of liberty that is rising up and taking our country back, county by county, and it's happening all across the United States, not just in Indiana. The Liberty Revival is starting here right now. I can feel it, and I know you can too.
Amen.
Amen. That's it. And it can propel us forward if we can continue holding this in our hearts and minds and not letting it go. And we can win this. I know we can. And that's it. I thank you all so very much for being here. I would like to take a brief moment. I know it's past 5 o'clock and you're all very gracious with your time and I appreciate it. I would like to introduce Margaret Menge as the campaign manager. James Sheridan, the director of fundraising. Michelle Harder, the treasurer. And Sarah Johnson, advisor. Now, if you'd like to stay along, we would like to sing one more song. If you gotta go, by all means go. You're more than welcome to stick around. They probably have more refreshments and food.
Don't go anywhere yet. Have your picture taken, take a selfie, or have someone take a picture of you and Charlie with our sign, which makes it official. There we go.